My name is Don Brady. I'm Assistant Dean of STEM at a community college in Massachusetts, Middlesex. We have two campuses. We have an urban campus in the city of Lowell, which is the fourth largest city in Massachusetts, behind Boston, Worcester, and Springfield. And we have a suburban campus in a town called Bedford, and they're about a 15-minute drive apart from each other. We have, depending upon how we count, we have between 9,000 and 11,000 students. That's not full-time equivalents, but that's the number of classes. So I've been at Middlesex for just over 3 years. My job was created as a result of a major realignment and reorganization within the college, creating a STEM division. Within STEM, the way we are organized, there are about 9 departments, 17 programs, roughly half of which are transfer programs and half are what we call terminal programs, lead to the workforce. There are 41 full-time faculty within the STEM organization and a huge number of adjuncts. In any given semester, we have about 200 sections of courses being taught by adjuncts. So we're large. We're large. Yes.
And those programs that you, the transfer programs that you have, do you have articulation agreements in place?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So in Massachusetts, so we have 2 different types of articulations. At the Massachusetts higher education, we have what's called the mass transfer, mass for Massachusetts, mass transfer agreements between the 15 community colleges and the University of Massachusetts and the state universities. So if a program at a community college meets certain requirements, then automatically the students who graduate from those programs are admitted to the 4-year program at either University of Massachusetts or the state universities. And then in addition to that, for individual programs such as our computer science program, which I'll talk about, we have individual articulation agreements with individual colleges, public and private. Yes. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Okay, let me introduce Diane Hudson. She's my co-conspirator here. Diane is, well, you can introduce yourself.
I'm an adjunct.
One of the hundreds.
One of the hundreds of adjuncts. I'm retired, actually, and I work because it's fun. And I've been at Middlesex for 15 years, so
5 times as long as I.
That's right. Just having fun.
So my background, I came from industry. I worked for what ended up being HP. Started out as Digital Equipment Corporation. I started there in the early 80s. We were acquired by Compaq Computer in the late 90s, and then 4 years later, HP came in and took over Compaq. So I moved, I didn't move, but the company moved from the East Coast to Texas to the West Coast. So I left there in 2007. And here I am at Middlesex. So what this is about, the next 45 minutes, is not so much the content of what our cybersecurity program is, but I want to talk about the process we went through to get where it is today, which is often more involved than the technical content of the program. So that's what this is focusing on. And since it's such a small audience, I would welcome making this as interactive as possible. I don't have to follow a script. I don't have a script, but I don't have to follow the slides serially. I really don't. So at any time, take me off course. That's perfectly okay. All right? So just before I had put this whole presentation together, and then last night and this morning I busily inserted one slide because I get the New York Times every day. It's not that I get to read it every day, but yesterday on a 6.5-hour flight, I had the Sunday paper. I reclined in my little space on the airplane. I opened up the paper. The first section I go to on Sunday is Sunday Review. If it's baseball season, I might go to sports, but it's not baseball season. So the front page of Sunday Review was cybersecurity. So I did a little plagiarism this morning, and this was a graphic on the front page, and the title was How My Mom Got Hacked. So I'm sitting on United Airlines thinking, oh, this somewhat validates what I'm about to talk about tomorrow. So here we are, talking about cybersecurity. Because one of the big things about putting this program together was we had to justify to about 1.5 million people that this was a worthy path to take. That wasn't so difficult because there's always stories like this. There were stories like this every month and then every week and now every day. I mean, there's the famous ones, right? There's the TJ Maxx, there's Home Depot, and there's my mom. And now it's becoming daily, not weekly. So the actual justification of spending the resources to build a program like this do in fact become easier and easier. But still, there's a fairly complex process we had to go through to get there. So that's what today is about. All right, so I'll first just give a brief view of what our MCC is, Middlesex Community College, what our ICT programs were. They were tired when I got there, when I came to Middlesex. So what we did to then move forward and kind of just update the whole set of programs. And I'll talk about how we went about all that, which is what this is. Okay? So, 3 years ago, Middlesex had 4 programs that you could argue fit under the ICT umbrella. Okay? We had a computer science program that was truly a transfer program. It didn't have a whole lot of value to our students unless they went on to a 4-year or perhaps beyond degree. And it really was and remains a solid program. It really is. It's a very good program. Teaches students to become, it's the first step in those students becoming software engineers. Okay? We had, at the time, 3 additional programs. IT General Studies. There's no one else in this room except for Diane from Middlesex, so I will say very candidly, I have no clue what the purpose of that program was or is. It was a non-degree program, 60 or so credits, which means 15 or so courses. I'll ask you, how many of those 15 courses do you think were IT courses? Exactly right, 3. You must have cheated and looked on our catalog.
It's my college.
Yeah.
3 IT courses, 3. And a student leaves with a degree. Is a student employable from that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We had an IT transfer program. Twice as good because it had, well, maybe 5/3 as good because it has 5 IT courses in the program. And it's designed for those students to then move on to some kind of bachelor's degree somewhere. And I don't know who would take those students. So I'm not saying this to diss my school, but to just start setting the foundation as to why we had to do something. Okay? And then we have program CSNT, all about networking. Some really, really good content. And in the 60 credits here, an appropriate number of courses had a program or department designation relevant to the outcomes. The problem here was that this the content in most of those courses had last been updated, and I'm not exaggerating, 8 or 10 years ago. Okay? Now, computer science, IT, CSNT is not like English or math, where you can look at a curriculum today and look at a curriculum from 1980, and yeah, pedagogy has changed, but content, it's pretty much the same. Okay, maybe one less Shakespeare you read today, but there's not a whole lot of difference in content of curriculum. IT, 8 years, we're talking Ice Age, right? So yeah, there was a lot of good content if it's 1998, right? So everything had to be seriously looked at, okay? And so part of the reason for Middlesex restructuring in 2011 was to put a better focus on STEM. Okay? And when I came in, I looked at IT, and my background being computer science, which is very related to IT, said, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, okay? So, all right, so what do we do? What do we do? IT needs to be, in my mind, blown up, and we need to create something. It wasn't even that, gee, we can take this and fix it. Okay? So my view of IT is it's this big umbrella thing, right? It's 100 miles wide because there's lots of things that make up IT. And in my view, no single IT program can cover all of it. Certainly not effectively, and certainly not to the point where a student who graduates from that kind of program becomes employable if it's a course here and a course. It's not a shotgun approach. Okay? So everything in the news regarding IT, and I'm exaggerating when I use the word everything, but everything in the news regarding IT is all about cybersecurity. All about cybersecurity. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer that this is the direction we should take. Not that other options and other choices weren't valid, okay? But cybersecurity seemed to be, you know, if we're going to grab people's attention and make them employable, seemed to make sense. And here's some anecdotal data that could bear some of that out. Okay? All right, so how do we go about this? Well, can't do it alone. Can't do it without buy-in. Can't do it without partnerships. Can't do it without alliances. Can't do it without funding. Can't do it without budgets. Can't do it without. So who needs to kind of say, yep, this makes sense, and yep, we'll support it, and yep, we're behind it, and yep, let's go ahead and do it. Right? So for me as an individual to say, this is the way to go, not going to work. If we want our students to be employable, we have to make sure industry says, yep, this is what we need. So the first thing I did was, or we did as a team, was we went out and talked with local industry. And we said, creating a new IT program, does cybersecurity make sense? If cybersecurity makes sense, then that means that you are saying that you need people who have those skills. So please help us define exactly what those skills are and work with us to develop an academic curriculum that will get students to that point so that 2 years hence, they will look attractive to you. And is 2 years enough? And yes?
When you talk to persons in industry, did you speak to or approach any particular business sector, finance, healthcare, etc.?
So we did a couple of things. We looked at employment data. So we have a partnership with what we call a regional employment board that is semi-funded by the state of Massachusetts. And we went to them and we said, can you give us some data, what companies in the area are looking for? And in fact, I think it's the very next slide. No, one more, please. Yes. So some of the data that came back from them was these, and this is a very small sampling. These are some of the industries and some of the named organizations that are looking, actively seeking people with these skills. Now, Eastern Bank may not mean anything to people in this room. It's a fairly large bank in the Northeast. It's not the only bank in this that's looking, certainly. So the finance industry, healthcare industry, academic, okay? All of these are. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. Keep those back again, sorry. So the Career Place is the name of this regional employment board that we work with. Okay. And then what I did was I reached out to a handful of local employers individually. And I met with them and said, we need help because we want to make sure we do this right. And to my surprise, some large and mid-sized companies jumped in and really jumped in. So MITRE, Lincoln Labs, BMC, VMware. Am I leaving one out? We have said, yeah, we'd be willing to help. And this was late spring of 2013, a year plus ago, year and a half ago now. That summer, we spent as a group, so fairly high-level security people at these companies came into conference rooms on our campus probably 5 different times, and I would estimate we spent 30 hours sitting around a conference table, literally, figuratively, sleeves rolled up.
And the industry professionals to the faculty was a 2-to-1 at least.
Yes.
Sometimes a 3-to-1.
Yeah.
There were more professionals than there were faculty working with us. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. And I mean, these were people whose individual careers are about data security, cybersecurity. So they knew what they were talking about. They knew what their companies needed, and they knew what kind of skills the industry needed. And we used that expertise to build a curriculum. And literally, we spent 30 or 40 hours that summer. That's a lot of time. 30 or 40 hours times 5 people from different external organizations. Yes?
You'll get to this later, but did they feel that they could get what they needed from a 2-year program?
Good question.
That's a very good question, and yeah, I will get to that later, but I'm happy to divert. That's absolutely, that's good. Yes and no. So we originally envisioned this IT program, we being the internal folks at Middlesex, envisioned this program initially as a workforce program. 2 years, go get a job. That's not so much. So the outcome was, yes, there are some entry-level jobs that our students would be able to get upon completion of this program, but where things are heading, 2 years isn't really enough to get all of that knowledge and stuff that you need to really be an IT security professional, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. So formally, not formerly, but formally, this program is now a transfer program, but it is also giving our students a pathway into the workforce for those entry-level jobs. So it's a formal transfer program. We are working articulation agreements with University of Massachusetts, with Northeastern University, and with Boston University, because all of those schools, they're all in our backyard, all of those schools have bachelor's programs in some form of IT security, cybersecurity, information assurance. So we will be working articulation agreements one-on-one with those schools. Does that answer your, yeah?
The reality is that many of our students can't afford the four-year education. That's why they're at community college in the first place. Many of them can't afford to leave community college and not have a pretty decent job to be able to then continue their education. So part of the hope is that the ones who have to go to work because they have families and the slide
Any number of
diapers and rent and that's paid for, can get a job and then continue their education at one of the articulation agreement schools.
And then just some quickly, and this is the snapshot from back when we were putting all this together. And this came from the employment board. These are actual. Now, are they real? But they were actual postings. Mm-hmm. This many unique job postings for cloud expertise, this many unique for network security.
And I did, this is off of Indeed.com, which is what Career Place uses for a lot of their data. And I did a search on this just last week, and the numbers were off less than 5% across the board on that. So the jobs are still here.
Yeah. What was that site that you said?
Indeed.com.
We've also used burning glass data.
It's like a monster job search.
So is this for your for the entire state or just for
no, Boston area? Boston area.
The east, northeast, eastern section of Massachusetts.
So when you set the criteria, I set it for Boston area, not just Lowell.
Yeah, it's not statewide. But then again, if you look at Massachusetts, the eastern third is
for the jobs. Right?
Yeah, with most of the jobs. With Boston, the Worcester.
I'm sorry, when you say, what do you mean by cloud, 1,794 jobs?
So there were 1,794 job postings that listed a requirement of
Server management?
So the IT cloud?
Yeah.
Yep.
Some expertise in cloud computing.
Some expertise in cloud computing.
Really impacted how our program developed.
That's true, because that's a very good point, because ours became very, I won't say cloud-centric, but there is certainly a significant cloud component to our curriculum, which is not how it started out.
No, but we ended up with an instructor who became hugely invested in it also.
Yeah, and totally revitalized by doing this work.
Yeah.
A guy who had been at Middlesex for 30 years, or has been at Middlesex for 30 years, and was the key CS computer software and networking technology person, suddenly became revitalized as if he was 30 years old again. Not 30 years at Middlesex. Truly, I mean, it's fun. It's great to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so the first entity that we had to convince that this was worthwhile was college leadership. Okay, so we put this plan together, and I actually met with the president of the college and the executive vice president of the college. I already had the backing of my academic side of the house, certainly, but we had to meet with the president. And the outcome of that meeting was she basically gave us carte blanche to do what needed to be done. She's been a woman of great vision. She's actually announced her retirement.
Carte blanche didn't mean a lot of money, though.
No, it didn't mean money, but it meant that programs aren't sacred, courses aren't sacred, and funding, that's another issue. But that's where BATEC came in. And I'll just get to one of my final points, and that is that BATEC covered 100% of the curriculum development and the professional development for faculty. So once we got over that hurdle, you know, the budget not being an issue, and no sacredness to anything that had been in existence at Middlesex for the past 117 years, even though the college has only been around for 40. You know, those were two huge hurdles that we overcame early in the game, which made life wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
The door was open.
Yeah. All right, so just quickly I'll take you through. So fall 2012, initial proposal to the president level of the college. Okay. Spring of 13, once the college said, yeah, this sounds good. They certainly need a new IT program. Went to BATEC. Middlesex had been a partner with BATEC for long before I came. I'm not sure when that relationship started, but it had been established. And that was a great first place to go looking for support and dollars.
BATEC actually supported the first development of the IT program. The one you didn't like?
Well, the one that kind of just...
It got old.
It got old.
Yeah.
So then it was in the spring of 13, we did the whole workforce study. You know, does this make sense to our employers? Yeah, it's in the news all the time, but does it make sense locally? All right. And went to the National Visiting Committee late spring, I think it was May of that year. And they signed off on it virtually without any pushback at all. So got wide latitude from the college. Whatever new curriculum, go ahead. We'll try to leverage what we can. Yep, absolutely. And I even got a commitment to hire a new IT faculty. It's like, what have I walked into here? I've got money to do curriculum. I've got the college saying, go ahead, do what you need. And oh, by the way, let me throw in this little bonus for you. A faculty member. Good? Okay. So what we found out and leverage is the CSNT program. So we had the two IT programs and we had the CSNT program. When we looked at the CSNT program and we looked at cybersecurity, so if you're trying to protect the data that's on my memory stick or the data that's on my hard drive, how do they get to my computer to steal my data or to corrupt it? They get there through the network. They get there through the net. They don't walk into this room and do something on this computer. They get to that computer through the network. And we had this solid, old networking curriculum that didn't all have to be trashed. It had to be updated. So I don't know the actual number, percentage, but I'll say half of our new curriculum that we developed for the cybersecurity program was an update of CSNT courseware that we had. The other half was all new stuff that we developed. Maybe it's not 50-50, maybe it's 75-25 or 60-40, somewhere in there. But my point is we took virtually nothing from our IT programs, took a lot from our CSNT program and created a new IT program. So late spring, early summer, we brought together this industry group, 5 companies represented, sat around the table in the summer. Okay. Dan, you want to say something about? So what we did was, we attended the CISI conference that June or May, June of that year, and got I've been to lots of conferences and lots of meetings in my professional life, and I have to say, the 2 CISI conferences I've attended last year and 2013 have been meaty. They really have. Hopefully you'll have the same comment about this session when you're done, but this conference was the right thing at the right time for what we were doing. It was like suddenly everything. We have the money, we have the faculty, and now we have some real content stuff and the networking to help us with this. Networking as in meeting people, not networking as in CSNT technology, right? And we learned all about the NICE framework. You familiar with that? So there's a consortium of the National Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security. And they've identified cybersecurity as one of the most serious risks to national security. And they created this framework called the National Infrastructure for Cybersecurity Education. And it's a framework of 17 different focus areas. And basically what that says is there are 17 sets of skills we need people trained in to protect our infrastructure, private and public. And for each of those 17 focus areas, they've created a framework for academic education, saying if you're going to get to develop the skills we need in this focus area, here is an outline of what an academic program needs to cover so that students can be skilled in this focus area. Focus area 2, 3, 4, 17.
And besides that, there were 11 core categories that you had to meet before you could go do those focus areas.
Yeah.
The unfortunate, can I butt in?
Sure.
The unfortunate thing that happened for us is when we went in 2013, the NICE framework was in the process of being revised.
Yeah.
So we picked up the old framework, started working with it, and then slam bam in 2014 they gave us a whole new framework.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad, but it did change, and it changed how we did some of our things. What we learned from that was that we needed to do a gap analysis with the courses we were going to keep or modify. And we spent the summer of 2013, a good part of it, developing spreadsheet gap analyses of all of our courses, all of our course objectives, and trying to see where they fit into that NICE framework. But it was the old NICE framework, and then we had to redo it again. So we did a little double work, but it certainly helped us focus on what we learned what we were teaching, which was important, and we learned what we needed to teach to meet their criteria. And some of it was revelational, like, why hadn't we thought of that before? So we spent a lot of time doing a gap analysis and just going through every course with every instructor. What do you teach? What are the criteria? What are the outcomes? How do you test that outcome? And built a gap analysis so we could fill in the holes. And then we had less to do, actually, when we saw what was needed. And that set the direction then for us for what we were going to do going forward with curriculum development.
Because we came back and we reviewed the 17 frameworks with the industry folks. And we, as Diane just said, we did a gap analysis of what we have in our inventory already. And that's where we came to the realization that, gee, some of this old CSNT curriculum is still viable as long as we update, bring it into the 2010s. And so, we did the gap analysis. Yeah, well, so this focus area would be worthwhile, but we don't have anything close to it now. This one would be worthwhile. This one would be we're not that far away. And the industry folks validated that, yeah, well, if we do this, this would be worthwhile. So that's what we built our curriculum on.
And that's part of the reason why we ended up with computer science secure network development, which
it was a byproduct, an accidental.
To our computer science program. It just has that additional secure software development as part of it. And we couldn't meld the two because we already had our mass transfer set up with the computer science, and we didn't want to mess that up.
So one of the focus areas of the 17 is called secure software development. One of the 17 is called network security administration. So this is the focus area that we built our new IT program on. We took our existing computer science program, which was and is solid, unlike the IT program. And it just so happened that one of our full-time computer science faculty members had 2 years previous gotten her PhD in information assurance. So we had significant current in-house expertise on secure software development. So what started out as strictly an IT effort initiative for us said, oh gee. So I brought Sanaz in, the computer science faculty member, into the conversation. And she looked it over, and said, you know, we just need 4 new courses, and we will have this. Those 3 of those 4 courses were part of her thesis. So within a month and a half, literally within 2 months, we had a whole new computer science track that met all the requirements of one of these focus areas set forth by the NSA and DHS. So what took almost a whole academic year to develop where we started, within 2 months, we had this accidental byproduct.
Which was thrilling.
It was thrilling. We had the budget, we had the faculty member, and now we have a whole new program 2 months later that we weren't even foreseeing or planning on.
Now, what was the mechanism that CS Secure Software Development that was now an adjunct track for your computer science students?
No, so we had actually, I love the way things sometimes tie in. So I mentioned earlier that in Massachusetts we have this mass transfer pact between community colleges and the public universities. So that pact requires that students, I don't know the exact number, take a certain number of credits, and it's a lot. It's in the high 20s, I believe, of credits of like gen ed courses. You know, an extra course in social sciences, nothing against the social science, an extra course in humanities, nothing against an extra course, an extra course. Well, they don't benefit STEM programs so much as they do non-STEM programs. So our computer science program was a mass transfer program. And there's great benefits to that, because if a student graduates from a mass transfer community college program, he or she is automatically admitted, doesn't even go through the application process, to the 4-year program in the same discipline. And they get tuition benefits compared to their counterparts that are, quote, native to the 4-year institution. So real benefits, real benefits. So to create this second track in computer science for secure software development required the creation of 4 additional CS courses as part of our associates program. All right? We cannot take a 60-credit program, add 4 courses, making it a 72-credit program. That's not going to work. So what we did was we replaced 4 of the mass transfer non-STEM courses in the computer science program, in the vanilla computer science program, replaced them with the 4 new computer science courses that related specifically to information assurance and all the security stuff. Still meeting all the graduation requirements for the general education courses within our community college. And now we have 2 computer science degrees.
Did that require a agreement on the part of your mass transfer?
Well,
modification of that agreement.
No. Well, so let me answer that this way. So a student now comes to us, I want to be a computer science major. You have 2 choices. You can be computer science major as part of a mass transfer pack, but then your program will not include these 4 new courses around secure software development. And if you get don't quote me on the exact requirement, but if you graduate with a C+, and then you'll automatically get into UMass. You don't have to apply. Okay. Your other choice is, oh, you want to do the security track of computer science. Okay. We are in the process of developing individual articulations with UMass, individual articulation with Northeastern, individual articulation. If you graduate from our program meeting those requirements, you are automatically admitted into those 4-year programs, but it's not part of mass transfer. One benefit that those students will not get is the tuition offset. But they will get automatic acceptance into the 4-year program if they meet the requirements set forth in the individual articulation agreements. Does that
answers what I needed.
Yeah.
Could you state the titles of those 4 courses?
Yeah, and just
Yes.
a second.
Let's go ahead. More? Sorry. More? Right there. So this is our curriculum map for the program. And the ones in red, I know you can't read it unless you have binoculars back there. But the 4 new courses that we created are called Operating Systems Basics and Security. It's a first semester course. Intro to Computer Security, Secure Programming, and I believe the 4th one is Information Assurance in the 4th semester. So separate from anything we're doing with any of this cybersecurity, Middlesex as an institution is working with Complete College America, which is an initiative to get students to complete degrees, 2-year degrees within 3 years. Preferably within 2 years, but within 3 is a success as well. And one of the things that Complete College America emphasizes is creating these degree maps so that when a new student comes in, you can show them, look, if you want to get through in 2 years, this is what you have to take that first semester. If you don't do that, you're not going to get done in 2 years. It doesn't apply to everybody because, as Diane said earlier, many of our students can't, for one reason, for a variety of reasons, can't be there full time. But if they...
Well, can you speak to the preparedness of students to take calculus? So do they really have math prep classes added in the first 2 semesters to prepare for calculus?
So one of the issues with transfer programs, right? And this is clearly a transfer. This is a transfer program because computer science is going to require a minimum bachelor's degree in order to be viable in the workforce. Okay? So one of the issues with transfer programs is sort of a backward design kind of thing, in that if we're going to send our students, if we're going to tell our students that when you leave here, you're qualifying to be a junior in a bachelor's program, then we have to get them to that point. So we are responsible for what they look like here. We have no control over what they look like when they come in. Right? We don't. But we are responsible for this point. That's our job, is to get them here. Otherwise, we are not a viable transfer program. All right? So we're in the process, not done yet, and again, this is institution-wide, this isn't our cybersecurity program. But we're in the process of creating these curriculum maps for what we call college-ready students and for what we call non-college-ready, developmental students. All right? So if we get a student who's college-ready, which means calculus-ready, then this is their map to get done in 2 years. Okay. 68% of our, I gave the number earlier, 9 to 11,000, depending upon how you measure it. 2/3 of those students are not college ready. Not college ready is one thing. Many of them, in terms of math, are at the arithmetic level. I mean, that's a fact of life. I mean, it's not an editorial statement. It's many of them are at the arithmetic level. Not all of them are, but 2/3 of them certainly are not at. To make it college ready for us doesn't even mean calculus ready. And again, how this program gets defined in terms of what courses they have to take is driven by the four-year college. Right? So yes, we count, and I think the world counts, pre-calc and trig as a college-level math course. Pre-calc and trig are not credit-bearing for a computer science program. So not only do these students have to be college-ready math, they have to be college-ready plus. So do we have large numbers? No. Do we have large numbers declaring themselves computer science majors? Yes. Do we have large numbers taking these courses? No. So yes, we are concurrently working, again, independent of any of the cybersecurity stuff. We are, and this is largely driven by this Complete College America initiative. We are concurrently working on a number of different things to accelerate students to be at the point where they can take courses that not only are college level, but are credit bearing for their program. And I'm sort of, this is certainly getting off track, but yeah, at an institution-wide thing, I'm trying to sort of steer that conversation more towards not the students that are in arithmetic, but the students that are a little bit more advanced than that, because it's just, I'm concerned that we won't be successful getting large numbers of arithmetic students to calculus. And there are many other worthy and viable programs for those students. Maybe computer science and engineering is not the right path for them because it may not be reasonable. But if we take those that are in Algebra 2 or pre-calc, yes, we can get them here. That's a different story for a different time, perhaps.
In a lot of ways, so it isn't. Because it's the same thing all of us are facing. And that is,
yeah,
given the roles that we're playing, particularly in ICT, taking these students that are coming out of high school or entering the workforce again, needing retraining, and I'm ready to go on for that bachelor's because, quite frankly, certifications are great, but in 5 years, everything's going to require a bachelor's, period. Certifications are not. So we're all facing the same thing.
Yeah.
How do we go from that entry level to here in 2 years? And I don't think that model's going to last much longer.
No, but on the other hand, not all, certainly not all STEM, although most STEM, not all ICT programs require calculus.
Right.
So if I kind of make two groupings of STEM programs, those that require calculus and those that don't require calculus, yeah, you can get arithmetic students to here. But trying to get an arithmetic student to here, yeah, it's, yeah.
So you gotta watch your time.
Yeah, I know. Time's up. No. Yeah, I mean, I guess time is actually up. Wow.
You could bring up the courses that are part of your
IT, sure. Right, is that it? Is it?
Yeah.
Is that the IT one? Yes. Okay. So this is the IT curriculum. Now, I need to say one thing. If you go on our website, you won't see this yet, and the reason is we did this work last academic year, and it went through. So when it was all done, you know, and anytime we create a new program, it needs to go through 2 levels of college governance to become official, and that happened in late April, early May, which for whatever reason is too late to become official for the following academic year. So it got approved, I believe it was May 1st. It was a Thursday in May, early May, is when the body meets once a month on Thursdays. First Thursday of the month. This got approved in May, but by then the catalogs are printed for fall of the same calendar year. So officially this becomes the program in fall of 15. But IT students who came in this past fall were advised into this. My only point being that if you look on our website, this is not what you're going to see. Okay. So anything in purple are NST courses that we could reuse. We just had to update. And we created 6 brand new classes. There being said. That was huge amount of work. Which is why we weren't ready until late spring to bring this to curriculum committee and college governance. Because it was a huge amount of work, completely paid for by BATEC.
Were those 16 courses based on the NICE framework, or were they based on,
yeah, but I don't mean to cut you off.
Were they based on the NICE framework, or were they based on input from your
yes,
summer meeting with the industry?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Very good.
So the summer meetings with industry sort of blessed it. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, but looked at the framework and said, and the focus areas, and said, yep, this one would make sense for us. Network security administration. And then the curriculum we built to satisfy that framework. The curriculum we built was with that in mind.